Are 3 game weeks enough for data-driven managers to make informed decisions? Many FPL players are considering an early wildcard strategy, but the question remains, is a 3 game sample size really sufficient to guide our decisions? To find out, I analyzed last season's numbers. Let's dive into the data. I started by looking at the non-penalty expected goal involvement, or XG, for the top 50 players from game weeks 1 to 3. Then, I compared these numbers to the same stats for game weeks 4 to 9. As you can see in chart 1, only 25 out of the top 50 players made it onto both lists. Salah tops the list, and he serves as a prime example. In the first 3 games, he recorded a 0.79 XG. But in the next 6, his XG jumped to 1.18. Using just 3 games as a sample, we would have completely underestimated Salah's potential. While there is some correlation between the 2 sets, it's far from perfect. Half of the players didn't even make it into the top 50 in both periods. On average, the players who stayed in the top 50 had a 0.23 XG difference between game weeks 1 to 3 and game weeks 4 to 9. Let's take a closer look at the top 8 players from game weeks 1 to 3. The standout performers were Bruno Fernandes with a 1.2 XG, Ollie Watkins at 1.05, and Erling Haaland at 1.03. But how did these players fare in game weeks 4 to 9? Only 2 of them, Haaland and Nicholas Jackson, remained in the top 8. The rest saw a significant drop in their XG. In fact, the combined XG per 90 minutes for these 8 players dropped from 7.81 in game weeks 1 to 3 to just 4.94 in game weeks 4 to 9. That's a difference of 2.87 XG per game week. Wider sample analysis. Now, let's consider a bigger sample. What happens if we wait until game week 6 before making decisions? Comparing game weeks 1 to 6 with game weeks 7 to 12 gives us a broader view. Even with a larger sample, only 27 players made it into the top 50 in both sets. Ollie Watkins, who tops this list, had a 0.72 XG in the first 6 games. But in the next 6 games, his XG shot up to 1.19. Judging him by just the first 6 games, we would have completely underestimated his potential. The average XG difference between the 2 periods was 0.17, a bit better than the 0.23 we saw before. However, it still doesn't make a huge difference. Looking at the best players from game weeks 1 to 6 versus game weeks 7 to 12, we see a slight improvement. 3 players, Haaland, Salah, and Jackson, made it into the top 8 for both periods. But again, the difference is marginal. Our top 8 players had a sum of 7.14 XG per 90 in GW16, then they had 5.25. That's a 1.89 difference from our expectations per game week. It was 2.87 before. That's not a huge difference again. So, what does this all mean for your FPL strategy? If you wait 6 game weeks instead of 3, your projections will become slightly more accurate. But in the meantime, if your team is far from perfect, you might lose more points. After analyzing all this data, I've concluded that an early wildcard isn't a bad strategy, especially if you're disappointed with your team's performance. Remember, you can accumulate up to 5 free transfers and still keep them when you play your wildcard. A valid strategy could be to save your free transfers, play an early wildcard, and then correct any mistakes with those transfers later on. What do you think? Hit the like button if you agree, leave a comment if you disagree, and don't forget to subscribe for more FPL insights like this.